What would you rather experience in your life? Fretting and worrying about others all the time, or delight and joy in your daily experience? I used to have an old Nissan Maxima, and it had some problems. And one of the problems is it needed a new airbag. It was old, and the airbag warning light would come on. And I tried to get it fixed. I took it back, and they were supposed to put in a new airbag. And supposedly they did, but it still just gave me that same warning light. I finally took some black electrical tape and just taped it over. The signal was still there, but I was ignoring it. You know, sometimes we have things in our life that we try to ignore. They're there, and we try to cover up those warning signals. King David talks about a couple of those in Psalms 37. He writes in verse 1 and 2, "Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers." How many of us fret or have this constant worrying or being anxious about the evil that we see others do? And you know what? Sometimes we forget that we do evil sometimes ourselves. Sometimes we say things that aren't right, we think things that aren't right, and sometimes we just hate on others. That's not doing good, that's doing evil. But sometimes when we see it in others, it's easier to see, and we get worried about it. Could be what we hear from a coworker, a politician, a pastor, a preacher, or maybe even a close loved one or family member. But King David right here is saying, don't fret yourself because of evildoers. Don't constantly be visibly worried or anxious. Don't be in that state of anxiety and worry. But there's another warning signal that he talks about in that verse. He says, be not envious of wrongdoers. You know, envy is one of those sins that are kind of hard to admit that we have. It's hard to admit that we get discontent because we see other people, they look like they're richer than us, more powerful, more famous. Looks like they don't have a worry in the world, you know, whether it's a celebrity on TV, a movie star, an entertainer, or some billionaire who makes all of his money or her money through their business. But that's envying. And then sometimes it looks like the people are doing evil. There's some scandal involved, and we just start hating on them and being envious. But King David says, don't do that. And that's a problem. But what perspective does he say we should have? In verse 2, he says, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. Whatever we're fretting about others, or even envying from others that we think are worse off or more evil than us, those things are going to pass away. They're temporary. And instead, King David writes what the solution in our practice should be. He says in verse 3, trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness or cultivate faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So when we're fretting and worrying about others and we get so upset and angry at them, he's saying instead, decide to delight yourself in the Lord. Think about him, enjoy him, and enjoy his presence. So turn your fretting, your worrying, and your anger into delighting in who God is and that he is in control. And what about how do we deal with the envy? He says in verse 3, trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. So instead of envying others for things that you don't have, trust God to meet the needs of the things that you don't have, and concentrate on doing good. Focus on what you can do rather than what other people are doing or what other people have. And just dwell in the land that he's given to you and be faithful to him and trustworthy. So that's the kind of perspective, and those are the things that we should practice. So where is this coming from? Are we going to be able to delight ourselves in the Lord and trust in the Lord Is that going to come from watching and binging on Netflix? Is it going to come from listening and enjoying top 40 songs that talk about relationships and other things and could even maybe leave us even more discontent? Or maybe even thinking of evil things that we can do? No, what we're supposed to do in verse 5 is commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. So instead of fretting about evildoers and hating on others and getting so angry and upset, or envying others and wondering, well, why don't I have those things? Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart.